Are you curious about how to own your skill set as a freelancer? If so, you're in the right place. My name is Marissa Price. What am I? I'm a social worker, freelance coach, freelancer myself for the past 2 years now. After taking Digital Nomad Kit's free 5-day VA training, that kind of launched my journey into online entrepreneurship, freelancing, the whole thing going live. During the challenge, I was realizing that was the first time that I went live ever. And so now this feels kind of like routine. So it's kind of full circle. I have Hannah Dixon with me today of Digital Nomad Kit, but I'll pass it over to her to introduce herself.
Thank you so much, Marissa. It's wonderful to be here. I am Hannah Dixon, as the name would suggest. I'm the founder of Digital Nomad Kit and the creator of the Virtual Excellence Academy. I have been in the virtual world, in the freelance space, for over 10 years. I was a virtual assistant or freelancer. I use those terms interchangeably myself for a few years, and then I moved into training others to do this kind of work. And so for the past 10 years, that's what I've been doing. I'm currently in Guanajuato, Mexico, which isn't too far from you, I believe.
Yeah, yes, I'm in Guadalajara, so not that far. Yes.
Very cool.
I see Mara. Yes. Hey, Mara. Welcome. Welcome.
Hi.
You mentioned something about like the difference between a virtual assistant and a freelancer. I would love to touch on that too, because I feel like a lot of people, when they enter this space, they think they have to be a virtual assistant versus like a lot of us have previous roles, previous networks, and you can utilize those skills to become a freelancer versus feeling like being a virtual assistant is your only path. So anything you want to speak to about that?
Yeah, so I would say that all virtual assistants are freelancers, but not all freelancers are virtual assistants.
Wow.
But I kind of use freelancing as the overall term for what we do, because ultimately it's just helping people with tasks in the tech, admin, and or creative areas online. So the scope of what you can do is very, very vast. As you said, people can come in with all kinds of skills and find freelance work.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. So if you're feeling like you don't want to be a virtual assistant, but you still want the freedom that freelancing provides, know that you can take your existing skill set and just transition that into basically working for yourself as a freelancer, which is what I have done, pivoting into coaching now as a social worker, realizing that I'm a whole social worker, that I was trained formally and now like working with clients in that capacity. So yes, I do want to say that. Yeah. And I want to ask what it means to own your skill set as a freelancer, because sometimes we can feel like we don't have any skills, especially as I talk about on my platforms, coming from a very toxic, traumatic work environment, basically having to rebuild my sense of self and reminding myself that I am skilled. So if someone's like struggling to even see that they are skilled and they have all these experiences that they can use to pivot into freelancing, what does it mean to kind of own those skills?
I think for me, owning your skill set is kind of standing in the truth of what you're bringing to the table, and without minimizing, without over explaining, without doubting the value. And it's essential, really, because freelancing isn't just about doing the work. It's communicating the value that you're bringing clearly and confidently, because if you're not owning it, no one else is going to do that for you. You kind of have to have that confidence in what you're bringing to the table in order to convince people to work with you, right? So I think it's really about knowing exactly what you're bringing to the table and then standing behind it and backing it and believing it.
I love that. Knowing what you bring to the table. Yes.
How did you just type that so fast? Multitasking pro here.
Yes. But yeah, that's so important to know that what you bring, first of all, it's unique, right? So no one else has your blend of skills.
Absolutely.
And that's really important when attracting your ideal clients, realizing that people are out there looking exactly for you.
Exactly.
And that's been part of like a journey of unlearning for me as a freelancer, realizing that I don't have to like do extra and go above and beyond to like try to convince people to work with me. It's like there's already aligned people who are looking for my services.
Exactly. And beyond services, I also just think it's personality, it's values, it's all that stuff that comes into play, which is, of course, necessary in maybe the corporate world or the traditional 9 to 5, but is so much more powerful to bring to the table when you're freelancing, because you're going to attract people that actually want to work with you, not just for the skills and the services you bring to the table, but for you.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I did not realize I typed that so fast, but yes. Just moving into the next question about having multiple skill sets. Just anything that you would recommend for freelancers to identify their skills and then clearly package their skills into like an offer to give to clients, because that can be sometimes like the hardest part. I know, like, once you have that understanding, I have all these skills, how can I like bundle them into something that's like tangible for me to offer people in exchange for money? So any advice or tips you have around that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that people do often come into this space thinking, oh, I have so many different skills, I have so much experience, which is a good problem to have. But then just because you're good at something doesn't mean you necessarily enjoy it. So start pulling away the things you don't enjoy doing, because there's no point doing that when you're starting a freelance business, right? You're just going to be building a prison of your own design. So pull away all the things you don't enjoy doing. And then from that, start doing some research. But first of all, I would start with you. I would write down a list of the things you actually enjoy doing, the things that you're good at, and then start identifying the types of people and companies you may want to work with. Because then you can start to identify gaps in the market. So you may be like, I'm really good at customer service, and I really genuinely enjoy that. And I love working with people who care about environmental causes. Then you can start whittling it down to like, okay, so what do they need? Then you go and do the research. What do they need? Okay, let me look at their most of their websites are pretty hideous. They're probably, I'm seeing that there's no responses to their Instagram posts. I could help with that. So you can start shaping your packages around what they genuinely need and what you are good at and what you enjoy doing in a space that you enjoy being in. So I think that's the most important thing, is identifying what you're good at that you actually enjoy doing. I think that's the main thing.
I love that. And I do want to talk about that, like understanding what you don't like too. That is so important. And something I've had to realize, like the tasks that you hate doing, even if you're skilled at them, right? You're not going to like doing them in your business like full time. They're actually going to like drain you, exhaust you. And so how can you like really like sit with that you don't have to do things that you don't like to do as a freelancer? I guess that's my question, because so often in workplaces, we just have to kind of put up with what we don't like to do.
I think it's an entire mindset shift, in that when you're moving to freelancing, you are moving into business ownership. You're moving into a whole different realm of working and living. It extends to how you live and how you think about work. So I think it requires doing the inner work to understand that you have the agency. And there's so many facets to this. There's, you could work with a therapist if it's really deep-seated. You could work with someone like Marissa, who can help you with that kind of thing. And I really do think that it starts from here. It has to start from the inside, and it needs to be a whole sort of, I don't want to sound alarmed or like over the top, but I do think it's like a whole worldview shift almost, right? It's like realizing that you have the power to do the things you want to do, and that you can actually be paid for them things. You can actually succeed in those things. You can actually have the things you want to have in your life, and you can do the things you want to do in a way that feels good. And that's so different from what we're taught in every way. We grow up with this life that's predetermined for us. And all the struggles that come with us, and realizing that it can be a little bit softer, it can be a little bit easier. Is freelancing always easy? No, of course not. Work is work at the end of the day. But choosing what you enjoy to do most of the time is such a game changer, and it does require that inner work. Read books that are going to help you. Work with coaches. Work with therapists. Do spirituality work if that's what calls you. Whatever you need to do to start working through those blocks, and actively doing it, and actively knowing that that's part of the work. It's part of being a freelancer, is working on your inner world, not just doing the task, not just checking off some boxes. It's actually doing that work, because I think that's the difference between people who kind of struggle and people who really thrive in this space.
That's such a good point. Yeah. Reclaiming your agency, like you said, and realizing that work does not have to like exhaust every piece of you, right? Even though, like you said, like there are certainly challenges with pivoting into freelancing, working for yourself. The different challenges that come with that, but to know that you're able to attract people who already align with you versus kind of like what I felt like in the workplace, like contorting myself for each job, right? Presenting like a different version of myself based on what was acceptable. There's a level of freedom that exists when you're a freelancer.
I call it pretzeling, like pretzeling yourself.
Yes. It hurts. It's uncomfortable. It does. Yes. It's uncomfortable. Absolutely. Yes. And I see a comment here. Lucy, Neuro Traveler. Yes, I am amazing at phone customer service because of the scripts, but I hate the phones. Yeah, that's important to realize. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. Good afternoon. Yes, I'm a licensed massage therapist in Virginia, formerly in the dental field. I love being an LMT, but want to venture into digital freelancing to be able to work abroad.
Very
Absolutely.
cool.
Yeah.
Very
I'm
cool.
sure you have so many skills that you can utilize to transition
Mhm.
to. Yes. Mayor says, I'm good at customer service, but I hated working customers. That's
Fair.
important. That's important.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you know what?
Yes.
Make a list of all the
Hmm.
stuff you never want to do again. If you're getting started in this space, just make a list of all the stuff you never want to do and then put that list in a box, put it in a drawer and refer to it if you need to. But just know that you've got it down, you've got it out. You're not doing that anymore.
Mm,
I love doing
I
that.
love that. Make a list. I love that.
Hmm.
Yes. Welcome. Welcome.
Hi.
And yes, any books that you recommend
Oh,
as you're
God.
on
There's
this internal journey? There's a lot.
endless books, endless books. If
Yeah.
you want to do money mindset, I recommend Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. I recommend Ramit Sethi's book. Can't remember the name of it, but Ramit Sethi has one book, so you'll find it. What else? I mean, those are money related books, which I think is a lot of the issues that come up with freelancing and owning your own business. It's the money mindset stuff. It's knowing your worth, knowing your value,
Mm-hmm.
those kinds of things. Knowing what's
Mm-hmm.
possible, I think, as well, and knowing what that, believing that people will pay the rates that you deserve to be paid, I think is another thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going to come back to that because off the top of my mind, like there's so many different ways to
Yeah.
take this, but money mindset, those are two that I really like.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And DL Jackson, wow, that's powerful. Contorting yourselves to fit. Yeah, it's true. It's
Yep.
true. Like, what piece am I taking off myself today? That's what it felt like in the work
Mhm.
environment so often. And just like over the past 2 years as a freelancer, like slowly putting those pieces back on, because
Yeah.
those pieces are what attracts like my ideal clients. Kind of like funny in that way. It's a healing process of
Yeah.
reclaiming those. Yeah.
I love that idea of putting it back on.
Yes. Putting it back on. Yes. I do want to ask
Mhm.
just about the expert mentality that some of us have, that we have to be an expert in something before we even begin, which may like stymie our progress, especially
Right.
at the beginning when you kind of have to play around with some things to see what works. How
Yeah.
can you work through like understanding that you don't have to be an expert to get started as a freelancer?
Yeah. So one of the things I always teach is that you're an expert right now where you are. To somebody, you're an expert. You only have to be a couple of steps ahead of somebody in a particular area of expertise or knowledge to be an expert in someone's eyes. So I always say, if the only thing you could do was create a Microsoft Word document, there is some person out there who needs help with that. And in their eyes, you're already the expert. So I think it's about not comparing where you want to be with where you are. Of course, you need to have some goals, but looking at where you are and realizing that there are people who want to be where you are, who need the skills where you are already, which already makes you an expert where you are right now today. So you're coming into this with skills. If you're here watching this live stream, you probably have more social media skills than a lot of people. If you are navigating social media on a daily basis, you have more skills than a lot of people. If you're using technology on a daily basis, if you're using AI on a daily basis, even if you don't work online, you already have more skills than a lot of people. In their eyes, you're an expert. So starting with what you know already is a really good place to be. And then, of course, you gain expertise as you grow. And the cool thing about freelancing, the thing that I love about it, is that you can start with what you know now and you can get clients with that right away. And you can learn more of what you do and don't like by doing. And as you do that, you get a little bit closer to expert status in the thing that you do enjoy doing. And I think another thing, just to take this on a little bit of a tangent, is that a lot of business coaches, it doesn't matter what type of business they're talking about, will tell you to find your passion and follow it. And I'm like, find your passion. Like, that's such an overwhelming concept, right? Like,
It
you could have
is.
so many passions. You might not have any passions. You might be, oh my God, I'm so unpassionate. It's an overwhelming concept. For me, it's like, find something you're curious about and run with it and let yourself learn by doing. This really is a career where you will need to be proactive. And that's a really big part of it, is letting go of any idea that you need to be an expert, any idea of needing to have like this one big passion or goal, and just knowing that as you get started, things will unravel, doors will open, you will start to realize what you do and don't like, and you'll become an expert by doing. And when you master something, that's when you become passionate about something. When you're like, oh my God, I'm really good at it. Mastery comes from there's a phrase and I'm missing it, but mastery comes from being passion comes from mastery. That's what I'm trying to say.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And that's so true. Like being comfortable with learning as you go.
Yes.
Because I do want to talk about kind of the pressure to have everything perfect before
Mm.
you start. And I'm thinking about like the tech stack. Often we think
Yeah.
that we have to have the premium plans of everything, the
Yeah.
website
No,
perfectly
no, no,
curated before we get clients. If someone's
no.
struggling with that or feeling like they have to have that before they get started, do you have any tips or guidance for them?
Yeah. So, a practical tip is that most of the tools that you'll use as a freelancer do have free plans to start with. And as you grow and as your needs increase, then maybe you'll need to move to those plans. But at that point, you're earning in order to cover that. So one of the things that's cool about this is that you don't need huge overheads to run this it's a very lean business model. And as you grow, yes, you may need those paid tools, but they'll be easily paid for. So that's number one. Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Yeah. People think that they have to start off on like the premium plans
Right.
and have
Yeah.
the website perfectly designed before
Right.
they start. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, also when I got started, one of the things I used to do was just talk to people. And then if they said yes to work with me, I send them a PayPal link to pay. Like really, really
Yeah.
simple. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you make it a really great client experience, and client experience isn't just about having fancy tools and a fancy website. It's more about the relationship you have with that person.
Yeah.
It's more about how you treat people, more about how they feel. If you make people feel really good and you're able to instill trust in people and you're able to demonstrate what you can do that with the simplest of tools. Like I said, you could talk to someone on a Facebook message, you could send them a PayPal link, and you could be done with it. Of course, as you grow, you might want to have those things in place, but perfection is a myth. Like that's never gonna there's always something you don't know. Perfection is a myth. Imperfect action all the way, because as I said, you'll learn and you'll grow and you'll revise and you'll refine as you go as well. You can start real simple. The most important thing is to make clients feel really, really good. Like think how would you want to feel if you're investing in a service and then try to give that to the clients you want to work with, right? Like if you want to feel peace of mind when you're paying someone, if you want to feel really good instead of feeling like you regret that purchase, you want to try and find ways to bring that across. And that's just a human-centered approach. That doesn't need tools.
That's so important. And I see a question here. Do you think we should prioritize finding our target audience instead?
To a degree. To a degree. Do you have anything you want to say on that before?
I think that's the first part. That's been like I feel like the most important part of my business is identifying who I want to work with, because I find like from there, like my messaging flows naturally. The services that I want to offer flow naturally if I'm able to understand and kind of get in the shoes of the people that I want to assist. So in that sense, yeah. I think starting with the basic tools and then knowing who you're going to work with.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. And just to add to that, I think that sometimes, niching or niching, however you want to call it. I call it niching, you call it niching, I'm sure. But I think one of the things people get really hung up on that is thinking they have to have this really rigid, solid idea of who they're going to work with. As I said before, start with what you're curious with, start with what you're interested in. It's going to change. Your niche is going to change so many times until you land on something you're like, yes, this just feels so, so good to me. And it doesn't necessarily need to be industry related. It could be values based. Like I said before, it could be, I just want to work with people who care about the environment. That leaves the scope of what type of industry you're working extremely wide, but it means that you're working with people who you really can get on with. So if you are someone who likes the versatility, niche by values, but niche with something. Like definitely have some sort of target audience at the beginning. That will help you get in, as Marissa said, with the messaging and that kind of thing. It's really, really helpful to have it directed to somebody instead of nobody. Because if you're not kind of refining that messaging, people are going to skip by you. They're going to be like, oh, there's a million other freelancers out there. Why you?
That's very important. Yes. Yeah. Niche by values. I love that. Because I do agree. In working with new freelancers too, there's like a pressure. I feel like a self-imposed pressure that we have to have like an avatar, a client avatar that's like in stone. Before we even get started, right? And that can again like take the air out of your balloon before you even get started freelancing. So having kind of a flexible way, I think that's like the part about freelancing, flexibility.
Full
you have
stop.
to be very nimble, flexible in this.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. You did mention client experience. I do want to talk about that because I feel like that sometimes that's overlooked as a freelancer, but it's kind of like the core of your business, how you keep people coming back for your services, how you get referrals. So anything you want to talk about the importance of client experience when you're just starting as a freelancer?
Sure. I think it's just important to recognize that client experience starts before the client even is aware of your existence, all the way up until the day you stop working with them or continue working with them. So it's really about creating touch points for them to feel good at every stage. And it's about helping them feel informed about what you offer, educated about the decision, to have peace of mind that you've got it, when you are working with them. And that can be anything from making sure that you have perhaps a portfolio that demonstrates that you can do what you say you can do, all the way to sending them a gift on their birthday. Creating these opportunities to dazzle and delight them at every stage, that they feel really, really confident from the moment they first become aware of you until the end game.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Dazzle and delight. I love that. Mm-hmm.
Little
I think
special
that's important.
something.
Yeah. That's important to like sit with what would I want if I'm going to seek out
Yeah.
services from someone. We all know like the bad customer service experiences versus the positive ones.
Yeah.
And how can you create the positive one for your future clients? That's really
Exactly.
important.
Yeah.
I do want to ask about visibility. So this may be a barrier for new freelancers, like feeling scared to show up online or even put out that you're open for business, that you're attracting new clients.
Yeah.
Is there any advice or guidance that you would give to people who have that fear of showing up online?
Yeah. I think it's a really common fear. I mean, I still have it myself. Sometimes it comes up.
Me too.
I think that, I think that a lot of people don't talk about that. I still find it hard to come on sessions like these, but I know that it's worth doing. And I've, through practice, I still do it. I think start with safe spaces that you feel good in. So practice showing up where you're celebrated, not just tolerated. That may be in Facebook groups, that may be in programs that you join. It may be working with Marissa. It may be with accountability buddies. Show up in places that feel good for you initially, and you'll start to build that confidence muscle. You'll start to work through those visibility fears by doing. As we've said a few times here, I think a lot of it is learning by doing. And when you do and you do and you do and you do, it becomes just that bit easier every single time. That's not to say that you're not going to come up against other visibility issues. For me, like getting on one of these sessions, I'm comfortable with this. It makes me a little nervous every time, but I'm comfortable. Getting on a stage, now that's scary. I still do it though. So I think being a freelancer, a part of it is knowing that you're going to be challenged and embracing those challenges and recognizing that, what's the worst that can really happen? I always think, what's the worst that can happen right now? Okay, everyone in this room is going to boo at me. And then I think, is that realistic? No, people are people and they're generally good and they're still going to clap at the end, even if I don't do the best job, and it will be fine, right? And I will learn from that. So I think sometimes taking yourself to that worst case scenario, realizing how ridiculous and that's, it is, and that it's probably not going to happen. And then sometimes I will say, okay, what's the worst that can happen if I put this post out and no one likes it? I'm like, I'll do another post. But then you can go to the extreme. If you have really high anxiety like myself, you might go to the extreme and say, okay, the worst case scenario is I try this, it doesn't work, I end up on the streets, nobody likes me, I have no friends. Okay, and then write down another list. What would I do if that happened? Because then you start realizing how resourceful you are and how many people who could help you, and all these things that you didn't realize you had until you put yourself mentally in that place. So that's maybe an extreme thing to do, but I like doing that exercise because I realize that my fears are usually ridiculous, and that if they ever did happen, there are resources to support me. Or I have.
That's really good. Yeah, that's a really good exercise. And I think part of what attracted me to Digital Nomad Kit is just like the transparency. First of all, being an introvert, this is still very difficult for me to do too.
Yeah.
With anxiety, right? And just knowing that I can still navigate through this to do what I want to do, right? It doesn't have to be a barrier if I don't allow it to be. I can move through it. I can work through it. And part of the reason why I created Black Women Freelancers, which is my free community for Black women, if you are a current or aspiring freelancer, to be able to have a safe space for us to practice with each other, right? To post about things, to share what we're working on, to get advice, to network with each other, because that's so important, to feel safe as you're just starting off, versus feeling like you have to post everywhere on social media immediately. Like taking it at your own pace is very important. Yes. I do want to ask about community. Speaking about Digital Nomad Kit, in the community that the challenge provides, like the Facebook community, to be able to do the same thing as you mentioned, to practice in a safe environment before you launch it out into the world. Anything you can share?
So I guess for me, community changed everything, like personally in my own journey. For me, it's like the antidote, sorry, to isolation. So and self-doubt. So having people around me who are on the same kind of journey was so impactful for me that I knew that if I was going to move into training, I want to create that kind of safe space for people as well, that a place where people really can show up as themselves, feel like they belong there, and show up flaws and all, and be like, hey, I'm actually struggling with something, and then everybody jump in and want to help, like. So I think one of the things about community for me is that I just did a talk on community recently, and a few things that I talked about there were that communities that work versus communities that don't are ones that feel like at least to a degree are decentralized in leadership and ownership. So for example, in our communities, we have something called the presidency. This is in our paid program, but that gives people in the program opportunities to bring to the table things that they want to see and see implemented in the group. And I think that's really, really powerful for other people in the group, not just leadership, to have a sense of ownership over it. And when they have that, they have a lot more pride in keeping it well. They have a lot more pride in helping other people. They genuinely want to be of service to other people. So it kind of feels more peer-led in that way. Of course, there's leadership and there's values and there's all those things that we set out and rules and guidelines and all that kind of thing. But when people feel a sense of ownership over community, those communities last, and they build the kind of relationships that transcend the professional. They are the kind of relationships that have the ability to transform your life. And some of the things that I see happen in our community, beyond people landing freelance jobs, beyond people collaborating on new business, we're seeing people getting married. We're seeing people travel the world together. We're seeing people start NGOs together. So I think the power in community is so underrated. But it's one of the reasons that I'm so big on it. And so during the 5-day challenge, you do get a taste of that.
I love that. I love that. And those bonds are powerful, right? That you're able to create in safe spaces to know that you're not navigating this journey alone. Like you said, isolation can be huge during this process. As a solopreneur, right? It's just me on my laptop every single day. Yeah. But if you have community that you can plug into to navigate this journey, it makes it sustainable long term.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I see... Hello, Blue Butterfly Wellness. I just put the real link in the chat. That was a shortened link, so hopefully that works, but let me know.
Perfect.
Okay. Let's talk about portfolios, because I know that you mentioned portfolios. Yes. If someone's just getting started, first of all, like a practice portfolio. So like doing tasks or like creating fake, I don't know is the word I want to use, but like mock, yes, mock social media posts if you're looking to be like helping people with that as a freelancer, helping clients with that. Anything that you want to share around how to get started building a portfolio if you're just literally beginning this process of becoming a freelancer?
Yeah, I mean, and just like you said, mock sort of projects, depending on what area you want to move into, a really good way to do that, because you're not having to sacrifice your time and energy working for free for somebody and hoping that they'll take you on, because that's very unlikely, because you've set the precedent that you're very, very flexible on the rate. So I think the best thing to do is to do mock sort of projects. So if you want to be a copywriter, write some blogs. You actually start a blog, because that blog is going to serve as a public body of work that you can show people that exists for more than one purpose, right? You're building your body of work as a portfolio piece, but it's also benefiting your business in multiple ways as well, visibility wise. But another thing I would do, I think a lot of people sometimes get concerned that like, oh, I haven't worked as a freelancer before. And so so everything they've done up until that point somehow feels discounted, like it doesn't matter anymore. And I'm like, no, all that offline work experience is still extremely valuable. Ask your last boss for a couple of sentences and, put highlights of quotes people have said about working with you. Treat those previous roles as you would an ex-client. There's things that you can glean from that are really beneficial to put into portfolio. And I think an easy way to put a portfolio together would be, depending on the type of work you do, I mean, you can just run into Canva. You can get a template from there. If you're not great at graphic design, just use a template. There are tools that make this really easy now. You can use AI to help inform the verbiage you want to use if you're not a great writer, for example, and that's not the thing you're focusing on. But I think as long as you can pull together enough evidence that you can do what you say you can do, that's ultimately all clients want to see. Results over resumes in this work. So as long as you can prove what you say you can do.
I
love
that.
Those mock things are Honestly, like you kind of hit the nail on the head already. That's basically what I would have said. So that's the most important thing. Then you're not working for free.
Oh, can
Working
we
for
talk
you.
about that?
Yeah.
Because some people, when they start, they feel like they have to offer services for free. And so if that comes up like in my community, Black Women Freelancers, immediately like, no, because that sets a precedent for
Yeah,
your business, right?
it does. Yeah.
So anything you want to share about that, like the pressure that people feel to offer their services for
Yeah.
free when they're first starting off?
I get it. And I think it comes from a place of insecurity a lot of the time and really trying to prove yourself. And it comes back to what we talked about at the beginning is knowing your worth, right? I think that there are a couple of exceptions to the rule where I would say if there's, for example, an NGO or a charity you really care about and you really want to be involved in and you want to do a project for them, sure, go for it. But if you're doing this for free for people who have money in their pocket, who have a business that's running, you're doing yourself a disservice. Those people are very unlikely to hire you at your actual rate that you would like. And you're going to feel resentful. If you're feeling resentful, you're probably not charging enough, right? So I think that doing those mock projects, as we talked about before, and demonstrating your value in those ways is a much more powerful way because you're working for you. That's priceless. That's going to serve you over and over and over again. Whereas if you do a project for somebody else and you are working for free, you're going to be pouring your time and energy into it. What if they want a ton of revisions? And then you're just getting resentful. Then it's like, it's horrible. Yeah, I've been there. So I just don't recommend it off the bat. I always recommend charging for your services. If you put, and I'm not super strict on this. I'm like, there are benchmarks of what you can charge, right? This always going to fall a little bit under, a little bit over, depending on multiple factors. Ultimately, you want to feel comfortable with what you're charging. If you can't say it in the mirror and feel good about saying it, you're not going to sell it, right? So if anyone, Marissa could tell you charge $40 an hour. I could tell you charge $50 an hour. If you don't feel comfortable saying, start with 30. That's okay. But just make sure that you're charging when you are working with your clients.
That's so important. Yes. And I do want to talk about like charging enough for your lifestyle, right? Because I know that we talked about that in the challenge too. Like there's this whole spreadsheet of setting your rates based on how much your life costs versus like lowballing yourself when you first go in and then all your expenses pile up, right? Which kind of like sinks your ship before it sails as a freelancer. So anything you want to share around that? Like pricing your services based on how much your life costs.
Yeah, I mean, there's your individual life, and then it's like depending on the country you live in, the tax you need to pay. Like those are all the things that you need to consider when it comes to your pricing. So, for example, we have a few members in Germany, and the taxes in Germany are insane. They're like 55% for freelancers. So it's like you need to charge a certain amount, right? And then if you're going to go after clients who are going to pay you, you want to be working with German clients who understand that, who know that that's the price of things there, right? So there's that element, and then there's making sure that you're not sacrificing your lifestyle to do this. And I think you can, but it needs to be in a comfortable way. So, for example, when I started my business, as someone who used to have a European passport, Brexit, but I was able to move to Budapest, and Budapest had a lower cost of living at the time, and so I was able to build my business there more comfortably. And there are things you can do like that. However, if you love your life and you love where you are and you have certain expenses and certain obligations and certain needs, or you have children and you know that there's things that you need to cover, you can't afford to be undercharging. You can't afford to not charge what you need to charge, which means you need to learn what you need to learn. And you can learn by doing, like we talked about before. It's not something where you need to start just piling up certificates and investing. There's some level of investment that can be helpful. However, learning by doing, so that you can justify those rates. And then ultimately the client experience, the experience you give people is more important than the service or the price. I'm telling you that it is literally the most important thing. So if you are delivering a top-notch, standout VIP client experience, that can alone justify you charging the rates you want to charge.
That's so important. Try and type that really quickly.
You do type extremely fast. I can hear you tapping away.
Yeah, that's so important. The experience that you give people is more important than the service or price. That's a gem.
There's actually statistics around this, and I'm not going to say them because I don't know, but they're like high percentages of people say that that's the most important thing.
Wow.
They're willing to pay more for the experience.
That's really helpful. Thank you. Hey, Maya. Good to see you.
Hi.
Yes. Question: any tips on balancing new skills without being overwhelmed? Anything that you have to say around
Yeah,
that?
I guess, I mean, just starting with what you know and knowing, as we said before, that you can start with exactly what you know and you can grow those skills. And if it's more about learning those skills and taking the time to do that, carving out time that's realistic. I think some people get in and they get really like, oh, I'm so excited about this. And maybe they have a 9 to 5 job, maybe they have a family, maybe they have other obligations or
Yeah.
commitments. And then they run out of capacity real quick, and that can lead to burnout. So I think being realistic about how much time you can dedicate, and then actually dedicating that time. Carve it out in your calendar. Set boundaries with the people around you at home if you need to. This is my time where I'm working on my business, not on my clients, not on anything else. I'm working on my business and in my business right now, to upskill. So carving out really good time to do that makes sense, that is actually in line with your realistic capacity, so you don't burn out. And then recognizing again that you can start with where you are. And if you start doing those things, you'll just naturally start, you'll start up leveling in that area as well.
Right. Right. Thank you for that. I do want to talk about that burnout.
Mm.
Can be very easy to do. Ask me how I know. In the
Mhm.
first year of being a freelancer,
Yeah.
any tips that you have around creating systems, or even like as we
Mhm.
talked about before, mindset shifts
Yes.
to stop it before it even happens, right? Because it
Yeah.
can be very easy when you're working by yourself,
Yes.
recovering perfectionist, all these things that kind of show
Mhm.
up as a
Mhm.
solopreneur.
Stop
Any tips
describing
for
me.
working?
Yeah, I mean, burnout, it if I do feel like some people may be more predisposed to it, myself, I'm talking about me. Um,
Mm,
but I still think there are things that you can do to prevent it or lessen its impact when it may show up. Um, as you said, systems, setting up systems, automating things. I think like we have such great tools at our disposal these days to automate and use AI to do a lot of the background stuff for us, that can help you batch your work, that can help you work more efficiently. I also think
mhm,
another one is detaching your worth from client feedback, from the income that you have, um, and also knowing that you're allowed to rest. Like I just put a newsletter out a couple of days ago. Rest is the most productive thing you can do, especially as a self-employed person. We carry a lot of things when we're self-employed. It's not just doing the work for our clients, it's doing the work for our own business, it's doing that visibility work, it's doing that inner work. That's a lot of work, right? And so
mhm,
that work requires rest. It's like you can't just keep going. You can't just keep working 12-hour days, because even if you're excited about it, which is me, I get into these like hyper focus modes and I'm so excited, and then I'm like, I'm in bed for 2 weeks. So
mhm,
consciously taking rest, consciously saying, even though I have the energy right now, even though I'm really fired up about this, I'm still going to take the rest of the day off. I'm still going to stop working at 4 or 5 or 6 p.m., whatever sort of schedule you have. I'm still going to do that. I'm going to take that time intentionally, because I know that even though my mind is here, my body's going to need rest soon. My brain will need rest. So I think
mhm,
just scheduling in rest. Yeah, exactly. Scheduling in
mhm.
rest and knowing that it's just as productive as working, if not more.
That's very important. And
Mm.
I think like reflecting back on my journey, pivoting from corporate into
Mm.
freelancing, I'm like, I'm not having any schedule at all. And that actually
Mhm.
led to burnout. And so I
Yeah.
had to create kind of like a flexible schedule, right? I could have like a list for the
Yes.
day. And if I got like one task marked off, that would still be a success. So keeping like
Yeah.
flexibility, but a loose schedule so that you can build in that
Yes.
rest time, I think is helpful.
Totally.
Yeah,
Love that.
absolutely. I see a question. How important is niching? I struggle with it. What if you're an older worker with a lot of varied experience? Would it be worthwhile to try and tap into all of it to find clients? Anything that you want to share around that?
I say, Kat, it sounds like you probably came in a little bit later. I would go back and watch the beginning, because we kind of touched on both of these points. And just to
Mhm.
summarize them, I think that niching is important to a degree, depending on how you do it. But yeah, some sort of idea of who you want to work with and or the service you want to be providing is really, really helpful for messaging and finding clients that genuinely want to work with you. Having all that varied experience is extremely valuable. But strip away the things that you don't want to do anymore, Kat. Like there are going to be so many things that you've done in your life that you're probably like, I would love to never touch that thing again. You don't have to. So no, it's probably wouldn't be worthwhile trying to tap into all of that. I always say, as a freelancer, you can have like a few proficiencies that you're really, really good at, that you put upright, left, center, that's the thing that you lead with. You can have other stuff in your back pocket that you pull out as you need it, right? That's still going to serve a purpose, but you want to lead with something. That's also with the niche. You're leading with something. It doesn't mean that if you say, I only work with doctors, that you wouldn't work with someone in, the holistic wellness space, right? So you could still choose to make that decision behind the scenes. You can still use all these tools in your back pocket behind the scenes, but you want to lead with something because that's what's going to speak to the clients who are looking to work with someone like you.
That's very important. Yes. Yeah. I see a question. Can you please dive a little bit deeper into how we can ensure our clients remain happy? So I think what Hannah mentioned about like dazzle and delight is very important in focusing on how you're showing up for your clients. I think you mentioned like giving presents, which I know when I was in the challenge, I was like, oh, I never considered that before.
Yeah,
But like showing your appreciation.
exactly. I think so one of the things I always do, when I start working with a new client, for example, maybe they've paid me a hefty sum of money and I'm like, okay, cool. This is an opportunity for me to maybe send them a little thank you note. Like I'll get their address when they're checking out. I'll send them something in the mail. So I'll give you some examples of things that I've done. I had a client who was a doctor who wanted to start a YouTube channel. She was going to use her phone just to start with. And she was like thinking about all the tech she needed. And we were going to start working together to get her YouTube channel up. She paid me a lump sum up front. I sent her a really nice ring light and a little tripod for her phone and a thank you note in the mail. So she received that 2 days after paying me. And that's such a feel good factor for people because they're like, this was more than I expected, right? So I always think bake into your pricing, knowing that you're gonna dazzle and delight them at moments where they least expect it, that are gonna make them feel really, really good about working with you. What are other things? I mean, other thing, also just the way you talk to your clients, right? Not just like being a good person, but like using collaborative language is one that I really, really rested on a lot when I was doing these services. So instead of saying, I'll get this done for you, say, we're working on this together. Like, let your clients know that you're part of the team, that you really care about it. And I think just that little switch from the I to the we can help your clients feel a lot different about how they work with you and how you show up for them and in their business. It's kind of reassuring, I think, to hear that kind of language. And then just getting to know, just noticing little things, preempting things, being proactive when you can afford and it's not a sacrifice to your own mental well-being, go that little bit above and beyond. And I'm not saying all the time, like I'm saying, like when you have capacity, do that. But like getting to know little things about them, like, I had a client once who, I can't remember what the event was. It was some big thing happened in her business and she was really excited about it. And we had this ongoing joke about pet rocks. And I sent her a pet rock as like a celebratory gift. And she put it in her garden and sent me a picture of it every day. Like, good morning. Like,
That's
there's
cute.
just little things that you can do that are just like, things you would do with your friends that you just remember about them. So just going out of your way to do things that are memorable, that make people feel good. Again, using that collaborative language as often as possible, things like that.
I love that. And that's made a huge difference for me, that language, switching from I to we, because it's like you're including your client in on the process.
Yeah.
It makes work less transactional feeling too.
Yes, totally.
And it's more like we're on the same team working towards a shared goal.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You're so welcome, Kat. And yes, please rewatch from the beginning to catch all the gems Hannah just dropped. Okay. As we are winding down, I do want to ask just advice you have if people feel like they're not good enough, ready enough, or capable enough to become a freelancer. Because a lot of us have battled those feelings, right? Any advice that you would like to share around people who may be feeling that way?
Yeah, I think this is common in anything, like anything new that you start, any new space that you're in, whether it's professional, personal, that can come up. And I think it's just, I can say this. I can tell you you're already enough. Anyone could tell you you're already enough. The only thing missing is the evidence that you believe it. So that's what you really want to start doing is learning how to believe that you're already enough, which, like I said, this isn't exclusive to freelancing. This is just a life thing. This is a very common thing, is not feeling enough as human beings, right? And ultimately, what would you say to your best friend if they said, oh, I'm not enough, I'm not good enough? It's the same advice for anything. That's such a human experience. It's such a shared human experience, I think, for probably the majority of humans, unless you're like a insane narcissist. But I think a lot of us do struggle with that, and I think that as I've said before, doing things that instill confidence. The more you do things, the more you can feel confident about your ability to do them. The more you show up for yourself, the more reliable you'll feel about how you do your work and how you can show up for other people. I think there's demonstrating to your clients that you do what you say you can do, but there's also demonstrating to yourself, right? So you also need to create habits that allow you to trust yourself. So some things that I like to do is like, this is gonna, I've never told anyone, this is like something very much just in my brain, but I have these weird little like things, like let's say I'm just looking at my laundry hanging on the line right now inside, and I'm thinking, when I'm doing that, I try to like do it really fast, and like if I can do this within a minute, then I'm going to get a treat or something, like I'll do little things like this and I'm like, cool, I did it in a minute. Now I could probably get down to 50 seconds. And this is just things I do in my head all the time, because I want to prove to myself that I can do things. And when you can prove to yourself over and over through habits that you can do things, you build so much self-confidence, which is going to make you feel like more than enough in time. So know that you're not alone with that. Know that you can connect with other people who feel that way, and that there's power in numbers. So community, again, come back to community, come back to safe spaces. And I would say, finding ways to build trust in yourself is essential.
I love that. That's so important. And I love those challenges that you do with yourself.
That's a really silly example, but I do that all day, constantly.
Yeah, and that does build up, like little by little. I found like this is a very like iterative process over time. And you start to like rebuild those like self-confidence, really. And something I'll be talking about at the Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black Women coming up May 16th through 18th, which I'll link here in the chat. But that's where I'll be talking about how to take your power back, own your skill set, and rebuild your self-worth. Because exactly. Because I have found this process over the past 2 years. It has been a process of self-worth rebuilding, right? As a freelancer. And so it's much deeper, as we talked about. It's like these deep issues that you're confronted with as a freelancer, that in jobs, sometimes we can suppress it, right? And just navigate through. But when you are working by yourself as a solopreneur, attracting clients, those issues often pop up to the surface.
And what a beautiful opportunity to work through them, right? And that's why I always think freelancing is so powerful, because it's not just about your work, it's about how you can realize potential in so many different areas of your life. So I think it's a really beautiful opportunity to welcome those challenges and work through them. So join the Job Liberation Summit.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. And I see it. Hi, ladies, still can't seem to register for the 5-day challenge. Really? Okay. Let me put the link in the chat one more time. Yes.
The DNK site having an issue. Let's have a look.
Okay. And let me just put the regular link in here too.
Okay. The page seems to be working my end. So maybe can drop it in the comments afterwards.
Okay. Alrighty. I do see a comment I want to get to. Thank you for such insightful info. You're welcome. I'm looking forward to the 5-day challenge. And then what can people expect? April 21st through 25th, 5-day VA challenge through Digital Nomad Kit.
Sure. So I'm not going to give away every day in what we do. There's a reason it's called a challenge, but every day I would recommend setting aside an hour of time at your own convenience. It's completely asynchronous. Day one, we start taking you through a process of identifying those existing skills you have, because a lot of people don't realize or think that they have them. So really sort of drawing them out through some exercises we have in day one, and starting to look at who we might want to work with. What kind of values do they have? Like we talked about before, what industries are they working in, what skills, and how can I marry those together? So on day one, at the end of day one, which sounds crazy, but it's true. At the end of day one, you'll have like a workable elevator pitch, which again is going to change. Imperfect action, right? Get started with something, better than nothing. But you'll have something you can move forward with on day one. Day two, as Marissa talked about, we talk about money quite a lot there, because I think that's such a big hold up for people. There's a misconception that you're only going to earn $5 an hour. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about building a real sustainable business. So we help you identify what your existing needs are and what your existing expenses are, so that you can sustain the lifestyle you have now at the very minimum and grow from there. We talk about money mindset a little bit because it's important. We do look at lifestyle stuff, as I've talked about in this session here today. When you start freelancing, it's not just about the work you do; it's about your entire lifestyle. It's a worldview shift. It's pretty monumental in how you start living after that. So it's about identifying how you want to move forward, what you want your life to look like, and some exercises to help you to sort of get that down and out there. And then on day 4 and 5, those are the ones I don't like talking about publicly because it scares people. But if you get through day 1, 2, and 3, day 4 and 5 feel like a breeze. And that's when we start getting you to do things that really do move the needle. And we've had people land clients with zero experience. I say this because everyone's bringing skills to the table, right? But landing clients from not knowing what they were doing freelancing to day 5, landing clients, paying clients. So they're really powerful steps to help you move through a lot of the really common concerns and questions and things that come up when you're getting started, and do things with guidance and support. So one of the things that we promise is that whether 200 people sign up or 2,000 people sign up, everybody gets personalized support. So you'll come and you'll get personalized support from myself and my team and from other people in the group as well. And I think it's just such a powerful way to start, as we talked about community earlier, and kind of just get that guidance on in those early and very pertinent days.
It is. Yeah, and having took the challenge, more than 2 years ago at this point. Like I said, that the challenge was my first entry point into the world of online business. And it kind of started this entire journey. As I'm kind of reflecting back, I'm like, wow, that was the first time I went live, reached out to Tabitha Brown during the exercise. So, it's amazing once you tap into your skill set and you're able to recognize that for yourself. The opportunities that open to you and the pathways that you can take that you maybe never knew before.
Exactly. So, it's like I said, it's like you start going and then doors start opening that you didn't know existed, right? It's really powerful.
Absolutely. But yes, I want to thank y'all so much for being here. Thank you, Hannah, so much
for
coming.
Having me.
Yes.
Everyone for comments and questions.
Yes, thank you again to both of you. Look forward to hopefully working with you in the future, meeting Mexico. Oh, yes, absolutely. On another note, I really appreciate you ladies taking the time out to support us on this journey. Absolutely. Thank you for being here. Yes, y'all. On that note, thank you so much for joining. If you're live, if you're watching the replay, please comment below if anything resonates. And please register for the free 5-day VA challenge led by Digital Nomad Kit, April 21st through 25th, linked in the description as well. All right, y'all. On that note, thank y'all so much.
Thank you. Bye.